trying to look at a board game. I've had a few requests recently to do another board game video. So, the one that I have chosen is Azul. This is a really fun game to play. It has tile placement in it, and I think it's just a really beautiful game. And this is a type of game that I really enjoy playing. So you have a really beautiful rule book, and they have all of these beautiful patterns on the tiles. Alright, let's take the boards out. And you have your markers. And then you have your tile back. And then this is called the factory displays. These little circles. All right. So each player gets a board, tiles and kind of make your moves. And then these we place around a circle. I won't place all of them, but place them around in a circle. Alright, so setting up the game, you're going to give each player a player board. Flip your board to the side with a colored wool. That is this side. It's the side with all of the colored patterns on the one side. Then each player is going to take a scoring marker. These little black squares are the scoring markers. You will place it on the 0 of the score tracker. So this section of the board is where you will keep track of your score. And then you will have the factory displays in a circle as we have put it on already. So the next part, or I should say how many that you have out, depends on how many players you have in your game. In a 2-player game, you will have 5 factory displays. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. In a 3-player game, you will have 7. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And in a 4-player game, you will use all 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Next, you will have your bag. Filled with tiles. Lots of beautiful patterns and colors. So, the player visited Portugal takes the starting player marker, which is this. So depending on how well traveled you are or from what part of the world you are from, depends on how you decide to choose your first player. I don't personally know anyone that's been to Portugal, including myself, so you may have to choose a different method. But the official rules for the game is that the player who's most recently visited Portugal takes the starting player marker and then fills each factory with 4 random tiles drawn from the bag. So you're going to take the bag, reach your hand inside, and produce 4 tiles. Those 4 tiles are going to sit on top of the factory displays. Return any unused player boards, scoring markers, and factory displays to the box, because you won't need them during the game. So the object of this game is to be the player with the most points, or with the most points at the end of the game. The game ends after the round in which at least one player has completed a line on his or her wall. That means that they have completed one line. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The game is played over multiple rounds, each of which is composed of 3 phases: factory offer, wall tiling, and preparing for the next round. So let's look at factory offering first. The starting player, the player with the starting token, places the starting player marker in the center of the table and takes their first turn. Play continues clockwise after that point. So on your turn, you must pick a tile in one of the following ways. You either pick all tiles of the same color from any one factory display, and then move the remaining tiles of this factory display to the center, or you pick all tiles of the same color from the center of the table. If you are the first player in this round to pick tiles from the center of the table, also take the starting player marker and place it onto the leftmost free space on your floor line. Let's get some random tiles on here. Alright. Once you have chosen whether you are taking your tiles from the center square or from one of the outer squares here, the factory displays, then you will add those tiles that you picked to one of the 5 pattern lines on your player board. The first line has 1 space to hold 1 tile. The 5th line has 5. was referring to this area here. Place the tiles one by one from right to left in your chosen pattern line. If the pattern line already holds tiles, you may only add tiles of the same color to it. So, if I had one tile here, and I chose to take all of the same color from this factory display, which should be this one that I would want, I could add it to this one. I could add that to this one, but I would not be able to add it to this one because they are different patterns. Once all spaces of a pattern line are filled, that line is considered complete. If you have picked up more tiles than you can place in your chosen pattern line, you must place the excess tiles in the floor lines. This area down here is the floor line. These are your pattern lines. This is your wall. Your goal in this phase is to complete as many of your pattern lines as you can, because during the following wall tiling phase, you will only be able to move tiles from a completed pattern line to their lines on your wall to score points. In all later rounds, you must also comply with the following rule. You are not allowed to place tiles of a certain color in a pattern line whose corresponding line on your wall already holds the tile of that color. So if I already had placed during round 1, if I was able to move this tile over here, in all of the lines after that, or all of the rounds, I wouldn't be able to place another one here of the same color, because when it gets to the wall tiling phase, I can't move another one of these over. So it kind of will affect which tiles you end up wanting to choose from your factory displays. And that's kind of where the competition comes in, and some of the strategy about what your opponents are taking versus what you want, what they have on their walls, and what you have in your wall. So again, any tiles that you have picked that you cannot or do not want to place on your pattern lines, you must then place on your floor line, filling its space from left to right. These tiles are considered as having fallen on the floor, and will give you minus points in the wall tiling phase. If all spaces of your floor line are occupied, return any further fallen tiles to the lid of the game box to store them for now. You would really, really not want to fill this all away if you can help it. You will lose a lot of points that way. So once that's all complete, that ends the phase when the center of the table and all factory displays contain no more tiles. So once these are all chosen, So then continue with the wall tiling phase. Alright, so wall tiling. This phase can be carried out by all players simultaneously, so everyone that's playing can do this at the same time. There's no need to take turns. As they move tiles from their complete pattern lines over to the walls. So you go through your pattern line from top to bottom and move for the rightmost tile of each completed line to the space of the same color in the corresponding line of your wall. So if I had this line here is completed, it only required that I have 2 tiles in the line to complete it. So when I get to the wall tiling phase, I can use this completed line to move it over. So we got from the rightmost space, and then I would just move it over to its corresponding tile on the wall. However, if I only had 2 of these bluer ones here, and I was missing 2 from that line, because this line can hold 4, then I would not be able to move this to its corresponding line. It would need to wait until the next turn, or the next round, I should say. Once this is done, any remaining tiles on that pattern lines stay on your player board for the next round. So these without a completed line would stay. Each tile that you move over to your wall, always placed on the space matching its color, and immediately scores as follows. If there are no tiles directly adjacent, either vertically or horizontally, to the newly placed tile, gain 1 point on the score track. This is your score track up here. So that's where your marker comes in place and how you score them. If there are any adjacent tiles, or if there are any tiles adjacent, however, do the following. First, if there are 1 or more tiles horizontally linked, to the newly placed tile. If so, count all of these linked tiles, including the newly placed one. So this would be 1, 2, 3. Then check if there are 1 or more tiles vertically linked to the newly placed tile. If so, count all these linked tiles, including the newly placed tile. So then these would be worth 2 points. Finally, at the end of the wall tiling phase, check if you have any tiles on your floor line. For each tile in your floor line, you lose the number of points indicated directly above it. Adjust your scoring marker on your score track accordingly. However, you can never drop below 0 points. So that's nice. You can never have negative points here. But as you can see, it's very, very easy to lose points. So if you start filling up your floor line here with spaces, because if you remember, if you take from the center before anyone else, you already start with the first player marker in your 1 space. So you're already starting with -1 point. And if you don't have anything linked to your tiles that you place, they're only worth 1 point. And then, you have to have a completed line for each of these in order to get them on. So, especially at the beginning of the game, it's you don't get a lot of points for those beginning rounds, so you have to be a little careful and kind of think ahead for some of your moves. So, afterwards, you remove all tiles from your floor line and place them into the lid of the game box, or honestly, just really wherever you want to place them. If you have the starting player marker on your floor line, it counts as a normal tile there, but instead of placing in the lid, you place in front of you, because on the next round, you get to be the first player to pick from your factory displays. If nobody has completed a horizontal line of 5 consecutive tiles on her wall or his wall yet, prepare for the next round. The player with the starting player marker refills each of the factory displays with 4 tiles from the bag as a setup. If the bag is empty, refill it with all the tiles that you have placed in the lid of the game box, and then continue filling the remaining factory displays. Then start a new round. In the rare case that you run out of tiles again while there are none left in the lid, start a new round as usual, even though not all the factory displays are filled properly. Ending the game. The game ends right after the wall tiling phase, in which at least one player has completed at least one horizontal line of 5 consecutive tiles on his or her wall. So again, that's just all of them filled. So sometimes you don't really want the game to end too quickly. So maybe you don't put a square in there on every round. It's kind of, I feel like usually when I've played, somebody kind of tends to just put one in there every round, and it'll end typically after 5 rounds. But, it kind of depends on who you're playing with. So, once the game has ended, score additional points if you have achieved any of the following goals. You gain 2 points for each complete horizontal spell of 5 consecutive tiles on your wall. So for each time you've completed a line, you gain 2 additional points. You gain 7 points for each vertical line of 5 consecutive tiles on your wall. And then you gain 10 points for each color of which you have placed all 5 tiles. So that means if I have managed to place all 5 of these, all 5 of those, then I will get 10 additional points. The player with the most points on her or his score track wins the game. In the case of a tie, the tied player with more complete horizontal lines wins the game. If that does not break the tie, then the victory is shared. So that is Azul. It's honestly a very quick and easy game. I really like it because you're playing, I feel like mostly kind of by yourself, but it has a nice element in there of competition too. In that you have to kind of be mindful of what your opponent is taking. You don't want them to take your tiles or whatnot, so you might have to adjust your strategy in the middle of your gameplay. So yeah. this game with 3 players once, but I think it plays really well with 2. And again, it's just a nice kind of quick, light game to play. You know, it doesn't take a lot of time commitment or, you know, anything special. So, if you have not checked this game out, I would highly recommend. It's really fun and it's one of my favorites.